Hi, I'm Ronnie Garvin, the Hands of Stone, and a lot of people remember this, and I'm going to make an interview with Great North Wrestling, basically about my life. So I hope it's not too boring and you all enjoy it.
So a lot of people don't know that you're actually from Quebec. Where exactly in Quebec were you born and where did you grow up?
It's been kept a good secret. I was born in Montreal, and I was raised from the age of 2 in Gaspé. Cap de Rosy, exactly. It's a park now. I don't even think there's a town there. It's Parc Forillon. I think it's a provincial park. And we moved back to Montreal when I was 13 years old.
And were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Not really. Well, when I came to Montreal, I wasn't a fan of anything. Yeah, well, I can say hockey probably because we listened to sport on the radio. And it was a battery radio. We didn't have electricity. And maybe a little boxing too. I remember Joe Louis boxing, and I don't think Raymond Rougeau was boxing then. But no, anyway, hockey was the big deal. Andre Richard, Maurice Richard, Bellevaux, and all them guys, and then that was about it as far as sports. And when I got to Montreal, my aunt took me to the Forum, and it was real popular in Montreal then. Yvonne Robert and the Rougeau, Johnny, and Hans Schmidt, and you know the guy that lost his ear. Yukon Eric and Kowalski. Anyway, yeah, it was. My aunt took me to the matches, but I never thought I was going to get into that.
Did you have a favorite when you were growing up?
No, because unless you went to the matches.
Right.
You know? And I left home not long after that because I didn't get along with my dad. I was a bad kid. If it would have been for wrestling, I would be in, what's that jail they got there? No, I was not a good kid. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to listen to my parents. My dad gave me a choice, work, I'll go to school. I packed up and left at 15. And, you know, I got streetwise real quick. And I forgot who it was. I went to the Loisirs Saint-Jean-de-Baptiste. And that's when I started wrestling. Well, first I went there and I boxed. Didn't last long. I got my head rattled, and the guy, I couldn't touch the guy. You know, they put me. I wanted to box the guy. I can't remember the guy's name. He was an older guy. I skipped the rope. He wanted me to skip the rope and run and do all kinds of exercises. I wanted to box, so I think he got mad because he tapped me a little bit, and I quit. I said, "Nah, that's not for me." It was different than street fighting, you know, sucker punch guys and stuff like that. But
so that was like a boys and girls
Pat
club
Curry.
place.
Pat Curry. What was his name? He wrestled as Pat Curry in England. He was a coach. Pat Gerard.
Okay.
You ever heard of him?
No.
Pat Gerard. He wrestled in England. He was a big star. He was teaching wrestling at the Loisirs Saint-Jean-Baptiste. It was run by a priest. It was the church was above, and there was a big gymnasium. They had everything from judo to boxing and amateur wrestling, professional wrestling, weightlifting.
So it wasn't that hidden that they were teaching pro wrestling? Because I know in a lot of territories it was actually hard to get into the wrestling business.
Well, they had wrestling. Yeah, well, it was not that hard there. It was harder when I went to Boston. Some of those guys. It was harder to get accepted from the old timers. There was no kids in the wrestling. When I went to Boston, there was maybe 2 or 3 of us. I was the youngest one. I think first time I was 17, 18 years old.
So what was your training like overall?
Well, Pat Gerard, we worked out. I forgot how many months, weeks. And then they had wrestling where they charged people to come in. And I guess the money went to the church.
Okay.
And I was going to wrestle in front of people, you know. So that was a big deal. At the end of the year, they gave the guys a trophy. You know. And I remember I was excited. And I remember he said to me, he wanted me to use a knee drop. Of course, Kowalski that thing was, off the top rope,
Yeah.
and I could do it, which I did a lot in my career. I did it on somebody's, one of the Rougeau's dad. I did it on, because it's a good move. And so we went into the room and he brought me aside. And he was a pretty rough guy, I think, in his younger days. Anyway, I was kind of intimidated. He says, you shake his hand when he turns. You run and you hit him with a knee in the back. And then down he goes, you climb on the top rope and that knee dropped, and he says, if you don't do it right, I'm going to show you how to do it right. I was scared of that. I won my first match. That's what I did. I said, if I didn't do it right, it was either me or... So I don't know if I hurt the other guy. I don't think I did, but
How long
it
was
looked good. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. How long was it before you started traveling as a wrestler after that?
Well, I did some local show. I can't remember, small towns around town. There was a guy that was promoting towns, and you ever heard of Fernand Chartier, Tony
Yes.
Ross?
Yeah.
There was guys like that, Bobo Maisonneuve. They were all going there. I think Pat Patterson went there, and I forgot how many. I think a lot of local guys came out of Montreal went to that.
Is it true that you grew up around Terry Garvin?
No,
Okay.
Terry was from East Montreal.
Okay.
No, I didn't meet Terry till I was, after that, I knew Pat because I went to school. The school was about a quarter of a block from where Pat lived.
Okay.
And I was seeing his sister, Annette. I think she's my age or younger. And Pat was already wrestling, and Terry, and I went there, I went to Palais des Sports, the Sports Palace.
Okay.
Sports Palace. It was not far from where I live. We live in East Montreal too. And Pat was wrestling there. Terry was partners with 2 or 3 of them. They're blonde. They call them the Blondes. I can't remember the name. And they packed that place. And that was opposition to the Forum.
Okay.
Silvio Sampson was the promoter. And there was a big rivalry in the promotion, but Sampson never could equal what was the other guy's promoted? I can't remember his name now. It was promoting the Forum.
Yeah, I know there was the Rougeaus. It didn't.
That's way
Vachons
before.
have their-
Way before that.
Oh, okay. I don't know that.
I
far
think
back.
Johnny was wrestling for him,
Okay.
and he died. And I guess Johnny, that's how he got the promotion. I don't know.
Okay. And what would have been your first territory other than the Quebec?
Boston.
Boston. What
Yeah.
brought you there?
I can't remember if it was Terry. Chinley was there too. Remember Chinley?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of guys going to Montreal, going to Boston. And what was his other guy?
So you knew Terry from Montreal, and he would have probably just put in a good word for you there.
No, I think he called Tony. Somebody called Tony Santos, and that's how I went to Boston. But then that was not a good place to go. You're starved to death.
Okay.
$55 a week. I tell people that's a lot of people probably would have quit, but it was either that or go home.
When were your matches with the great Malenko? Because I've heard that you had a few matches with him.
That guy was a prince. He's one of the best. I got a list that's probably 100 of the best. I put them all at number 1, and he's one of them.
A lot of people say that he's one of the greatest heels of all time.
Oh, maybe not. I don't think everybody in their own way. It's how you get there.
Yeah.
Because you get guys that's very successful, But Malenko had this knack. He didn't have to kill 15 guys to get over. A week after he was in the territory, he'd go to the ring and they wanted to kill him. Because he had this knack, this look, whatever. He closed that eye, do an interview, and he was good. Interviews were very important, and he was very good at it. And you He get beat every night and fight on the way out of the ring. How many times have you seen that? When you get beat, usually they just laugh at you. They don't want to kill you, but they just hated him, you know. And he had that heat, and I think that was a plus because a lot of in the process. I'll tell you why. I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I've seen it. The Stomper. Now, I'm not taking away anything from the Stomper. He drew a lot of money, but he had to destroy 15, 20 people before people really hated him, you know.
Yeah.
Where Malenko had just as much heat or more without going through all that. So totally different style of wrestling, but Malenko was a very talented guy and just unbelievable. And you don't hear of him anymore.
Is it true that the Garvin Stomp came from something that you saw him do?
Who told you that? I told a few people in the last few years, because I've had people say, how'd you come up with that? Well, I looked in wrestling, and most everybody in wrestling has copied somebody, but they modify it. You know, you modify it. You don't do it exactly the same way. I saw Malenko do that in Florida, mainly. Back in this 66, 67, you know, and then I got the idea, you know, to use it, but I use it in a different way. You know, I did the whole thing all the way around, you know, which he didn't. You know, he would do the head and the arm, you know, and the chest. But I modified it different. And I was like 20 years later, you know. So people forget.
When you were in the Florida territory, was it Eddie Graham running it?
Yeah.
What did you think of him as a promoter? Because everyone always talks about his mind.
Eddie Graham, he had a very good mind for the business. As a human being, he was a piece of shit, you know, because I saw him do things that, you know. But as a worker, yeah, very good mind, and he had a good run, you know, and but he didn't have a good ending, you know.
No, there's a lot of rumors floating around why he killed himself. Do you have any idea?
I think at the time they said he had a girlfriend. Well, he'd fly his airplane drunk. I mean, drunk. He even asked me and I forgot who it was, Tarzan Tyler, I think, one night to go back home with him. Because it got to where nobody wanted to get in a plane with him, you know. And he had a nice airplane. He was making a lot of money, but I heard he had a problem with a girlfriend. He was separated from his wife or divorced, I'm not sure. But he killed himself on his ex-wife's bed.
Are you surprised that his son also ended up killing himself?
No, it didn't surprise me. His son, last time I saw him was probably 5 or 6 years later. I was in the same car with him doing a trip. He had what was it? I think it was $600,000 check that he just had collected, that his dad had invested land in Florida. He made a lot of money, you know, a lot of money. And there was some kind of land that was with the sheriff's boys ranch in Florida, and somehow he had part of it or all of it, I'm not sure. But it was a Boy Scout thing in the summer.
Okay.
So, and I guess it got sold and his son got it. So with all that money, he still was not happy, you know.
Yeah.
But he was not. He was brought up. He was short, which is nothing wrong being short. But he was not his dad. You should never. That's what a lot of people say. Oh well, the dad. Well, you can't equal your dad usually, you know. And it's bad to chase after your dad. It's any business, you know. You should go on your own style, your own, you know. And I think that was one of his problems. He was a good guy. I liked him, though.
Was Dusty Rhodes kicking around the Florida territory at that time when you were there?
No, he was there, but he was a worker.
Okay, he wasn't on the
Dusty
booking
is
side
about 2 or 3 years younger than me.
Okay.
Him and Dick Murdoch. Oh, we had a blast back in them days. They were partners, and they were the wildest two guys you've ever seen in your ring, but they drew money. Yeah.
Do you have any interesting stories about Dick Murdoch? Because he was such a crazy character.
I can't, right off the top of my head. I traveled with him a lot. He liked to drink, you know. But he was a good worker. You could make money with him.
There's always the controversy on whether he was racist or not.
I don't think so. I don't know. Some people say you call somebody the N-word, you're racist. They call themselves that. You know, how many times we call people names? You know, what if that person was black? If he's white, it's okay. You can call him any damn thing you want.
Yeah.
You know, I don't buy into that. I don't know. He never told me he was in the Ku Klux Klan. You know, I never seen him burn crosses. You know, so
A
racist.
lot of that could be exaggerated over the years.
Well, yeah, you can make one comment, and all of a sudden you're a racist. You know, well, well, shit, they call each other that, and that's why it's going to be. People are going to use that word 150 years from now, because they're continuing it. So, you know, I don't care about that. I'm not racist. I don't care. I think people are just. You got to be politically correct. You got to do this and say that. And what the hell, you know?
And you also worked for Angelo Poffo, and I believe you were an investor in that company as well.
I had 20%.
How did you end up becoming a partial owner of that territory?
Well, I was over in Knoxville, and we went our separate ways. The promotion we split. Malenko was involved in the Bob Orton, and of course it's hard to promote. You know, people think it's easy, but there's a lot involved, and by splitting, it was not a big city. Knoxville, Tennessee was not that big, so we split the crowds. So nobody was making money. You know, because before that it was fantastic. But then we split, and then, so the Poffos were running Lexington, which is 200 miles north of Knoxville. And we didn't really know it. I didn't know they were running up there, because we didn't have any contact.
Right.
And somehow they contacted Ron Wright, was our front man. And then we had a meeting. And they wanted to merge. So it was good for them, it was good for us. But there was one problem. Me and Randy had a fight previously. We had a bad encounter in Columbia, South Carolina. And
was that over a match?
I came in on the winning end.
Okay. What was the story behind that?
Well, I was partners with Tiger Conway, Jr., and I didn't know the Poffos. I had never worked with them. That was the very first time. It was a tag match. I had heard of them, but I had never, and Randy and Lanny were just starting. And Randy had been in the business maybe a year, and he had 3-4 fights. With the English guy there, what was his name?
Billy Robinson?
No, he sucker punched people. He was good at that.
Les Thornton, maybe?
No, he might have had, but this guy was a shooter.
Okay.
He sucker punched him. Anyway, he had 2 or 3 fights. And Dundee, he sucker punched him in Memphis. So anyway, I had heard of that, because the news travel. So anyway, we're booked in Columbia, and we go into the ring, and everything was fine with me. I mean, I didn't have a problem. But then during the match, there was a problem with the Tiger and them, both of them. And then I realized they were going to double team them. And I don't know, if you don't have to be my friends. If you're my partner, I'm there. So at the end of the match, everything kind of went away a little bit, but then it came back at the end of the match, and then the shit was on. And we wound up on the floor. And so I was going after Lanny. Lanny was backing away, throwing kicks and shit. And I came around the corner, and Tiger and Randy are down on the floor. Well, I took one of them things to hold the rope, this got a metal base, boom. It was all over. The wrestling room empty upstairs, and a few people got hurt at ringside. Well,
this was during the
it was at ringside in Columbia. Yeah, so a few people got hurt, not seriously, but just banged up, scratched, and all the boys was down, So then I left after that, the territory. I got a lot of heat for it, but I didn't give a shit. because they were a real good friend with the booker, which was George Scott.
Right.
So that was another scene at the office later. But so anyway, I left, and I wound up in Tennessee. So this is like forward another 4 years when we went opposition. And that's when the meeting, so Randy's looking at me and I'm looking at him. I had never spoken to him again. And he said something about he called it a concrete block. Well, actually, it might have been made out of, but it was metal.
Yeah.
and so I didn't say nothing, you know. I just sat there at the meeting and listened. And so anyway, they offered, I forgot what the offer was. I think Roop got 10%, I think, and they were selling it. And the way we're going to pay for it is the dividends. We're going to keep the dividends, you know. So when it come to my turn, I said, I ain't going no 10%. You know? So they said, well, there's a bunch of us, you know. There's Angelo, that's 20% or nothing, you know. So I wound up at 20% of it. And it lasted, I don't know, 2 years, 2.5 years. But then we started drawing. But Roop, Orton, and I, we'd have a meeting. We have never met anybody like Angelo Poffo and Randy Savage. Lanny was good. Lanny was a good kid. He didn't give a shit. He had this attitude, this, you know, easygoing guy, you know. And he was okay. He just followed his brother, you know. And but we never met. Angelo Poffo, every single day that I was around him, I heard this: better rich and dead than poor and alive. And, better rich and dead than poor and alive. And anyway, the guy's dead. That was his life, you know. Yeah.
You ended up having good matches with Randy, though.
Oh yeah. He's good. He was a hell of a worker, But he was paranoid. To me, he was. If you did something good to him, or you were up to something, you know. And so yeah, we had good matches, real good matches. We did good business, and then we started drawing pretty darn decent. And then he'd screw the guys and tell us, I'm not going to give him a $200 payoff. I'm going to cut it in half. Well, that's how you keep your talent. And the money was there. You know, why get greedy? And then all of a sudden we had one guy leave, another guy leave, another guy leave. And then Orton left, Roop left, I left, and you know, there was no... and I'm going, why do that? You know, I mean, they work hard. All the guys, we had a good crew, and they were busting the butt, you know, to make it a go, you know. And then you do that. We went to the Rupp Arena. We had the big building in Lexington, and we drew some decent houses. I mean, for what we had, we didn't have that much expense. They did the TV. They had all the cameras. They did interviews at home. They turned their home into an office. You know, we had all the rings, all the equipment. We had vans, trucks, and you know, I mean, yeah.
And you mentioned that you spent some time in Memphis between the original Poffo fight and joining the promotion. What was your?
Well, that was way early.
Yeah.
Memphis was 72. Okay. That was like 9 years, 8 years, 9 years early.
What was your most memorable feud from your time in Memphis?
Memphis was, to me, it had to be a special town, man. The place was packed every week, every Monday, you know, and it was wrestling fans. You couldn't. I mean, they were there every week. You could. Well, I only spent a year there, in that area. But they kept telling us it's been like that for a long time. Memphis sell out. And it attracted a lot of guys who wanted to go work there. Yeah.
Was Jerry Lawler around at that time?
Yeah. When I was there, he was there too. Yeah. But I think when they didn't put everything on the card, I think when most of the time I worked there, he was in the other town. They ran 2 towns a night, Birmingham on Monday and Memphis. Birmingham, Alabama.
So this was before he was in the office. He would have just been a wrestler at that point, probably.
I didn't have any dealing with him. He was working. Now, I don't know if he had any involvement. It was kind of a funny territory because Jarrett says, I'll deal with you. Don't worry, you're not going to have to deal with, what was his name?
Nick Goulas.
Nick Goulas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you find Jarrett as a
He's a good guy.
promoter?
Yeah. Yeah, I have no problem. I went in there the first time and and I had told him, you know, I'm going to leave. If you screw with me, I'm gone. There's no if or but. Well, the first day I go to the office, Jarrett's mother worked in the office, Christine. She gave me a brown paper bag. She says, Nick says you got to wear this in Birmingham. I opened the bag. It's a suit, a medic with a white mask and a white outfit. I closed the bag up and I said, ma'am, tell Nick Goulas he can wear that shit. I'm out of here. And I did. I walked right out and there was a guy, can't remember his name. He worked for the office, stooge guy. He run, Dusek. He run to the car, Ronnie. So I went back in, he talked me into it. I told him, I said, I'll give it one more try. If they don't get it, I'm gone. So after that, I never had a problem.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't go to the office either. I stayed away from that shit.
And you're talking to us off camera about the North Bay / Pembroke, Ottawa Valley territory. What are your main memories of working that territory?
Oh, I'll tell you, it was a summer territory. Yeah, I think it opened up May the 1st and closed by the end of September. And the reason was because you couldn't get the arenas. It was hockey. And it was good because in the wintertime we'd go to Florida or go to North Carolina or go south and we recruited talent. We had guys like Don Serrano and Frankie Kane. You ever heard of Frankie Kane? He was the great Mephisto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was that. One time he was the blue, the medics.
Okay.
They were no, not the medics, the blue...
Infernos?
Infernos.
Yeah.
Good guy. As a matter of fact, I saw him last winter. He's still alive. He's like 85 years old. Good worker.
Didn't Terry Funk even work that territory at one point?
Terry. No, Terry was not born. Well, he was my age. No, it was Dory.
Dory, okay.
He was a big name up there. Dory Funk, senior. Yeah. It was senior, not junior.
Right.
And Maurice Vachon. I think maybe the Russos went up there. I'm not sure. They were using guys from Toronto too. They had a bunch of talent up there. And Louis Papineau, guys like that. And eventually, and even Roy Shires.
Oh, Roy.
Roy
Wow.
Shires was a big card there. Yeah. Don Evans. You ever heard of Don Evans?
Yeah.
He was the first one-man gang. And
You were the second, I guess.
well, that's where I copied, but it was long, and, you know, nobody knew about Don Evans, you know. And so anyway, they all wind up leaving pretty much about the same times. Shires went to California, Funk went to Texas. So when we got on the scene in '65, Larry even gave us 25% of the territory each. Well, didn't give us 25. He gave us 25% of if there was any profit. You know, and it was just while we were there, you know, nothing on paper. It was like word of mouth, you know, just a handshake. And that's why we went there 5 summers. Because we'd go to the States, we'd bring guys back to the territory. And, you know, we had the Mongols, we had Serrano, we brought guys like Chinley up there, we had guys like Frankie Kane. Yeah, we brought some...
And I'll just ask you about the Mongols because we just did the interview with Nikolai Volkoff. So I'm just wondering what your opinion of Nikolai was to work with.
Oh, he was very green then. I mean, he was a monster. I mean, he's a big guy and strong. He was all right. He didn't hurt nobody. But, you know, like I say, he hadn't been working very long. So we kind of worked around him. And but he was an impressive guy. Yeah, very impressive. What they did is they beat the guy with the boot. They had these boots with the soles that was that thick. People had never seen that. So we took advantage of it. You know, they take the boot and run the guy's head into that boot, and that was it. School's out. And so Terry took on, Bobby Hart was from there because his dad had wrestled, they're local guys.
Okay.
So there was a big card. Terry took Bobby Hart as a partner. They wound up beating Bobby. Then he took on another partner, and finally people were chanting, "We want Ronnie." Well, I was a heel, and so I kind of turned me, and when I came in, and then I started walking around with a box, a shoe box. It's so simple, shoe box. What's in the box? Can't tell. Trying to get permission from the commission. So we even brought somebody from down near Toronto, posing as a commissioner, and we milked it. We were keeping it for the end of the season, because we were closing. You go out with a big bang, and then, so anyway, finally I got permission to use what was in the box. It was a pair of cowboy boots. I took the boot and I just beat the shit out of them. That was simple. We did some good business. For the times and the size of the town, made a little money.
Did you prefer being a heel to a babyface? Because it seems like you were a heel most of your career, but you're best remembered as a babyface.
It didn't matter. I don't know. There's not much difference. I still wrestle like a heel. You punch me, I punch you, man. I ain't gonna shake no hands, and to me, wrestling was. I didn't have the gift of the gab. Some people could talk and draw money just talking. Of course, their matches sometimes were, and longevity sometimes don't last. And then you had guys that could talk and had good matches. So that was a plus. So I had to do more in the ring than. But to me, wrestling was. If you want to get results, you got to make the match look like you're competing. I never liked guys who walk around and waltz around and stick their head out the rope and do all that. Come on, it's a fight. Look at the MMA.
Yeah, it's being successful right now.
You can do the same thing in professional wrestling. You're working. Just like I did with the Rougeos. You ever seen those fights?
Oh, yes.
Well, you make it look like somebody's trying to beat somebody. Especially if you went on TV and did an interview and you pissed at each other. Well, you're going to go to the ring and walk around? Hell no, try to tear your damn head off, And that's how you get results. Because today I watch matches and they don't pin the guy till the end. Well, you should try to pin the guy any time that he's on his back on the floor. You should try to pin the guy. Otherwise, why should anybody cheer or get excited? Right? Logically, that's.
And you brought up the Rougeos. I'll just get into this part now. You had a very successful feud with them.
I almost got killed.
Yeah.
Lord of mercy, I came out with my life. No, just kidding. No, it was a very good summer. Very memorable 85 summer.
You told us off camera, but I'll just ask you again on camera how that feud came about, because it turned out you were just wanting to come up here for one shot a week or something to begin with, and it turned into
That's the irony of the thing, I just came up here to visit my family and spend a summer and maybe wrestle one time a week. I can write it off taxes legally. I did work it once a week, and it turned out to be an unbelievable summer.
And you had 2 big matches at the Forum, right? Or possibly more.
Yeah.
The first
Yeah,
one.
we had the first one.
Yeah.
And that was unbelievable. We Pearl Harbored them and attacked them, and I think the people were shocked. It was like a bomb had went off. It did. That's the way I looked at it. The pictures like boom, and then, and people were so mad. God, Lord. You talk about, and especially when we hurt the father.
Right.
Holy mackerel, man. It was just unbelievable.
Did you have to deal with any physical fan confrontations around that time?
No, we were pretty lucky. Yeah.
And
then when we came back, my God, I think it was one of the records, or it's up there in the records, because it was on the paper the next day. My dad was impressed. I said, well, you're just here on vacation. It was, I think, largest crowd for something.
And how did you find working with them as wrestlers?
Oh, very good, very good. Well, good chemistry, because if you don't have somebody that, because they were hard workers and we were too. And I mean, people don't want to pay money to see two or four guys waltzing around like it's a picnic, you know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys made mistakes working like that. It's like I never shook hands with a guy that went, you know, with the two fingers. Yeah, like, yeah, and walking around and they lock up and you don't see any muscles in their back. That's working, because they're just, you know, come on, it's a contest, you know. And if you can't take a whack, well, you shouldn't even be in that ring. I mean, within reason, you know. A guy breaks your nose and your jaw, but a little bump on the head and you know, whack in the chest and you know. There was some guys that cry and moan and usually
like
those
that.
guys never. Usually those guys never made any money.
Yeah.
You know, for that reason, they didn't show no efforts. They didn't want to sweat. They didn't want to work hard and breathe hard
And it was Jimmy Garvin who was your tag team for that feud, and he's your stepson, is that right? Are you the one that kind of helped break him
No,
into
I
the
didn't.
business? How did he get involved?
Well, I married his mother. He was a kid in Tampa, Florida. Her husband died, and his dad died. He was the chief of police of Tampa. And when I met his mom and we got married, he had trained with Eddie Graham, son.
Okay.
You know, a little bit. They did a little amateur wrestling, not professional, amateur wrestling. Because he was only 12 years old. No, 14. 13 or 14 back then. And that was it. Just a few times, Eddie and Mike Graham, they went to the gym. And then I think it was in, I don't know, early 70s. That would have been 72. 71 or 72. And that's when I went to Tennessee. And he was managing Terry.
Okay.
But we didn't have any contact for, you know, I didn't know where he was. You know, he was, I think they went to Texas, and I think they went to Oklahoma maybe, and Louisiana. But when I got the call, they were in Memphis, in Nashville. The office was in Nashville.
And you mentioned earlier that Precious was from North Bay. Did he meet her while working that territory?
When he was a little kid, he was 17 then, I think. I was working in North Bay. So I got married in '67, and I brought my wife. I met her in Florida in the wintertime. So that's how he got to come to North Bay.
Okay.
You know. But he wasn't working. He was, when he came to North Bay, he would have been 15, maybe 16. Yeah.
What did you think of her as a manager? Because she ended up being one of the first real successful.
It was good. Well, that was his wife, so there was, you know, it was a good deal for him, and she was doing a good job. I was around them just that time in Montreal, and then some in for Crockett for a little period.
Right.
And that was about it.
And what do you think of him being inducted into the Hall of Fame this past year?
Oh, is he? I never heard of it.
Yeah, they put him in the WWE Hall of Fame as part of the Freebirds.
Oh, well, good, good. No, I don't follow it. I didn't even know. I haven't seen him in 12, 15 years probably.
Okay. And you had a feud with Andre the Giant, who's a legendary character. Do you have any memories of that?
I beat him in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I never told anybody that. Because they didn't want to. But I don't blame him. Andre was he was a gentleman, man. He came to North Bay. And I tell people, and this is the truth, you can research it. I had a handicap match with Andre the Giant, him and another guy against me.
Okay.
I had the gimmick of the one-man gang. So I'd beat up 2 or 3 and 4 guys. You know, they'd send them in the ring, you know, not the boom, boom, cheers. And it was a good gimmick. That was in Knoxville territory. And Fuller brought Andre in. And Andre, what a guy. I mean, but the way we done it is I beat up this guy, what was his name? He's one of the cousins of the Fuller, Roy Lee Welsh.
Okay.
Ever heard of him?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, Roy Lee and Duke, not Duke, but the big guy. He's a Canadian guy. He's dead. Joe LeDuc.
Okay.
Joe LeDuc. Were partners. Well, I was in a ring. I forgot who was the partner. But anyway, the turnbuckle came loose, broke off. I beat the heck out of Joe LeDuc. Joe LeDuc is laying there, and I took, what's his name, and I broke his arm on the post. And then we sent somebody from the audience, pile drive him. Anyway, there was bodies laying everywhere. So Fuller, they took me on, Les Thatcher was doing the interviews and calls me over and we had an interview and they're going to have a secret opponent for me next year. Of course, I'm like a maniac, man. I had a little bit of a gimmick like Steve Austin, you know, just throw beer in people's face in the ring and, you know, do all kinds of crazy stuff. And I said, I'll wrestle anybody. So they had a piece of paper there. Said, well, you're so tough. I forgot who it was, LeDuc or somebody. They tricked me into signing. I signed the paper. What it was a handicap match. Of course, the other guy was in the cast. So he was a partner, but he wasn't going to wrestle. He was going to stand on the apron when the Giant was going to take care of business, you know, on me.
Yeah.
You know, so, but they booked it as a handicap match, Andre the Giant and Roy Lee Welsh against Ronnie Garvin, you know. And, we drew a hell of a house. The Coliseum was packed, man. And so we went out there and I got videos of it. I don't know if you ever seen any of it. They just show some highlights in it where he was down and I hit him with chairs and came off the top rope on him.
Wow.
With a knee drop, and Andre was on his knees from the beginning of I couldn't believe it.
I guess he liked you then to yourself like that.
He was a good guy.
I guess you're both French, so he probably had the connection with you there.
Yeah, I liked him. He didn't have to do any of that. You know, I was a King Kong in Knoxville after that. I'm telling you, I was just unbelievable.
Very rarely lost.
Yeah, I lost. But
oh, I meant him.
Oh, him.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And you also had a feud with Bob Orton Jr.
Oh, there's another guy, man. There's another guy. It's like a Malenko, you know.
Good
we've had, you know, Jake the Snake. That's another guy. We made money, man. I was in Ohio. We worked 1 week in Georgia back in, 1981, 82. We'd go to Ohio, man. It was sell out. And Jake was.
Yeah, we actually interviewed him recently too.
He was. I'll tell you what. I wish I would have wrestled in 5 years. I would have retired early.
Your biggest feud with him was in Atlanta, though. Is that right?
Yeah, but it carried over to Ohio too. Okay. We started it but the tape went up there.
Okay.
Yeah, we were on a superstation, so everything we did, we followed up in Ohio. You know, that was a perfect deal. We had strap match. Oh
wow.
Man, we beat each other. I mean, I'm talking about coming out of there. I think I got pictures. Whelp, man. That belt that wrap around him will whap.
So a lot of, some people like Bret Hart have said that Jake wasn't that tough. So in your experience wrestling him, he was tough.
Well, I don't know if he was tough but he didn't complain.
Right. He went out there and fought you.
Yeah, I don't know about tough in a fight.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'll tell you what, he never complained, and we beat, literally. We come out of there with bruises.
Are you happy to hear that he seems to have overcome his addictions for now?
I'm glad if he did. Man. He was his own worst enemy. What a good guy, though. I mean, he's a good. I wrestled his dad a lot. Grizzly.
Yeah.
I have more people come in the ring wrestling that man than any. I have a lot of people come in the ring, but him, I think every time I wrestle him, I had somebody come in the ring to help him. And the guy's 6'7", close to 6'8", I think.
Yeah.
He was huge, and again, it was like we talk about chemistry, he would have a way. I could hit the ropes and come off and hit him as hard as I could, right here. And he was so tall that it fit perfect. I never touched him, but he would stop right against his chin.
Okay.
I didn't have to pull it. And that's how tall he was. And it looked like his head would come off. I couldn't do that with anybody else. I never pulled it. I would just extend it all the way. It fit right into his neck, looked like I took his head off, and he would stagger. And I'd hit the rope again, and I'd come off about a second, third, fourth time. When he'd go down, somebody was coming in the ring.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh, he loved to work with me. He said, man. Boy. And then I worked with Jake, but he was just, his dad was good too. It was different. His dad was more slow.
Yeah.
He was a big man, you know.
Was Ole Anderson the booker when you were in the Atlanta territory?
Oh, yeah.
What did you
Ole
think
and
of
I
him?
were partners in early 70s in Florida, about 6 months. Well, on and off, it was not a regular tag team, but we were teaming a lot, traveling together. And I always liked Ole. I still call him today. Yeah. A lot of people didn't like him, but him and I always got along. You know why? He's brutally honest. He'll call you an asshole if he has to. If he thinks you are, he's going to call you that. Whatever it is, you know. And he got quite a few fights. He got beat up one time by, Black Jack Mulligan. Yeah. He told him off. He didn't care. He didn't care how big Black Jack was.
Right.
But he was that kind of guy, and he was a good booker. He was a good booker.
And you also had some matches with Arn Anderson too, didn't you?
Oh, there's another guy that's, There's another guy that's very good. Jeez, we made money too. I worked with him and Tully. Tully Blanchard was good, you know. He was a go-getter, you know. He was not lazy. He just, you know, which is good. There was some guys. They were good guys, you know. But some guys you prefer to work with because there was money there. What's his name? Valentine, Greg Valentine. I like to work with him.
Yeah. Did you work with him in Atlanta before WWE, or just?
You know, I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think so. I can't remember. I worked with him somewhere before,
Okay.
but not much. Yeah.
And was Jim Barnett still involved in the Atlanta territory?
Yeah, he was there when I went there in 80, 81, 82.
What did you think
But
of
he
him?
was not around that much.
Okay.
He was more around like in the 70s when I was there in 74, 75, you know.
I heard he was a great promoter as far as securing TV deals and.
Yeah, well, he was
forth.
successful, so I never had a whole lot of dealings with him, but I liked him. He liked me. We had a good relation there. He one time he came into the dressing room and, my God, Ronald. He liked the match.
Yeah.
You know? And I had Robert Fuller in the ring, and Robert was just green starting. And Robert was all legs and arms. He was tall, skinny, you know. He wanted to go 150 miles an hour, and so I got in the ring, and Barnett was on the stage, next to the curtains, watching the match, and we had a sellout too. It was a packed house, and Barnett always come in the dressing room when you had a big house. And I'm a sellout, boys, and I want you to bust your butt, you know. Anyway. Robert, man, he's going to impress somebody that night.
Yeah.
And we went out in the ring, and I told Robert, "That's headlock." He got me in a headlock. I picked him up. He took me over, and I'm in his arm, and I went, and he's going, he's panicking, and I kept him on the floor for about 3 minutes. And Barnett's watching the match, and this kid, he turns me loose and jumps up and runs around the ring.
That's funny.
I couldn't believe it. It's supposed to be a wrestling match. I'm in a hole. He turns me loose because we're not doing anything. Barnett's watching. And I did that for about 10 minutes.
That's funny.
At the end, we had people standing. Come into the dressing room, and Barnett says, "What a match, boys, Ronald, man." And he goes on and on, you know, and Robert, and the way, and Robert's looking at me like, yeah. It was good. We had the people standing. I mean, what else do you want?
Did you ever work the Mid-South territory?
The Mid-South?
For Bill Watts?
Yeah. I worked that in 85. I went over there. I had an airplane.
Okay.
And the only way I could make any money, I figured, is I worked double shots a night. So with an airplane, I could. I'd work the first match in one town, fly to the other, wrestle the main event. There's no bull. And of course, not every night. Maybe some weeks it was 3 nights. One week could be 4 nights, another week 2 nights. But, I worked probably, I'd say a good 9 times a week.
And that territory would have been really hot around that time.
Oh yeah, it was good. It was good. I remember working Jackson first match, make good money, place would be packed. I'd be in Baton Rouge, main event. The cops would pick me up at the airport with the light on and the siren, my tights on. And I'd walk right into the building, barely on time a few times. They were about to send somebody else, because they were in the ring waiting.
Right.
And because somebody had called, hey, they're on their way, the cops picked them up. And it was stressful. I only did it for 5 months because it was hard.
Did you ever face the Junkyard Dog there?
No, I was a heel too. No, he was Babyface. No, I never, who did I work with? Mantell was a champion. I worked with Mantell. And it was, but I think you had 2 towns a night. There was a lot of traveling, but with the plane, I didn't even have a car. I flew my plane and
did you get along with Bill Watts when you worked?
Well,
for
I
him?
knew him from way back when I was in Oklahoma, when he was barely starting too.
Right.
He was out of college and all that. I just did a short stint there, 2 or 3 months, and that's where he was.
What did you think of him as a promoter and booker? He was one of the legendary.
I got along with him,
Yep.
and he even borrowed my plane one night to go get some guy.
That's good. And you mentioned Roy Shire earlier. Did you ever work for him?
No.
Okay. Yeah. He was always known as a great finish.
I was in California one time. I was there and I worked probably 3 or 4 shots. I worked Winston-Salem. No Winston. So what was the name of the place? I went to Oregon too. I was out on the West Coast for 4 months maybe, and it wasn't Roy Shires promoting. It was somebody else then.
Okay.
That was before 75. That would have been 63 maybe. And I worked for Don Owens.
Mike LaBelle had lost the Los Angeles territory up there.
That's
too.
who it was. That's who it was. I didn't like California.
No.
No.
Too busy for you.
Yeah, I don't know. There was something about it that wasn't me. I went to Oregon. I liked Oregon, but I didn't stay either.
And you eventually went back to Jim Crockett Promotions, where you made a big name for yourself. What do you remember about your feud with the Midnight Express?
That was good. Good. Midnight Express, that was Cornette managing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I did the Miss Atlanta Lively.
Yeah, was that you that came up with that
me,
idea?
Man. I was a transgender. I'd fit good today.
Yeah.
I'd have my own bathroom in the schools or restaurants. In the States, they have to furnish you a bathroom. All you have to say is, I'm a woman, or whatever. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but that's true. Today I would, But that was an idea we had because I was partners with...
Barry Windham, was it? Or something?
No, Boogeyman.
Oh, okay,
Boogeyman, and Big Mama was his manager. Big Mama was his wife. And with Cornette, the Midnight Express. And I don't know all the details. I had done that one time. I made some money with it. I did only one time, though. I dressed as a woman. It's a surprise. I would sit there. I had done it different. I sat at ringside, in the crowd.
Yeah.
This time, we went to the ring. We wrestled. I had the wig on and the pants and the boots, and I did it 5 different times. I think I even did it in Baltimore, and we went around with it, because it was.
Yeah, it's one of the things people still talk about from that era.
It drew money.
Yeah.
It drew money. But the best time I had with it is when I got the check. The other best time I had is the first time I got dressed as a woman, and I wasn't married, and I had a girlfriend. And we went out on the night out, in the clubs, and people were making comments, you know. And look at the shoulders on this broad. Some guys that pinched my ass, and they thought we were two lesbians because we started kissing, you know, on the dance floor. And the comments, well, I had a blast. Then we'd leave there, go to another bar. It was fun.
What did you think of Jim Cornette? Because he's such a personality now. He's very well known in the industry as a booker as well, not just a manager.
I haven't seen him since 1990, I believe. He was all right. He was just a manager at the time. And so I never got to be around him a lot. I mean, we worked and that was it, you know. But he was a good manager. We were drawing some money, so whatever was done right.
And you also feuded with Big Bubba Rogers a little bit, who became the Big Boss.
That was one of the best matches I ever had. You ever seen that in Atlanta?
I have not seen it yet.
Look at it. That was a good match. And he was green.
Yeah.
He was green. He was Bubba Rogers. And he hadn't been in the business but a month or two, whatever it was.
Right. They liked his look or something.
Yeah. He fit the part. And yeah, you ever look at that? It's out there because I got the video of it. It was a street fight match.
Right.
We're dressed in street clothes. Yeah.
Did you ever face him in WWE at all when he was Big Boss Man?
I don't think so. And he was a heel. No.
Okay.
No. But I think his gimmick was better. I don't know why.
Big Bubba.
Yeah. I mean, what I saw. Yeah, it was a good gimmick. I guess he did all right with the stick and the uniform and all that. But
and you were tag team partners with Barry Windham for a while too. How did you like him?
Good. Oh, I knew him when he was a kid. We'd anchor the boats in the cove, and his dad. He's a little bit younger than me, you know. And we'd all anchor the boats in the cove and spend the weekend there partying and barbecuing and skiing and when we were partners, he was a good guy. He was a good worker. He was a real good.
And you guys wrestled the Russians a few times, right? Ivan Koloff and Barry Darcy.
And we wrestled the Hawk and
the
Animal.
Road Warrior. What did you think of those matches? Because those guys were known for being.
Shit, well, I wrestled them when they first came in. I'd get myself in holes. Oh, Hawk, man, he was a good guy. Yeah, I liked him. We got along real good. Yeah.
So you were able to pull off passable matches with him when they were.
Oh shit, we beat him one time. Me and Jerry Oates in Columbus, Georgia, for the belts, and shit, we had a return, man, and sold out the place. I mean, they drew money, yeah. But they were hard to work. I mean, they didn't know much, and then they got better. You know, they really improved. But they were impressive guys. I mean, you had to watch. I never got a, you know.
When did you find out that you were going to get that mini feud with Ric Flair and become NWA World Champion?
Well, I don't know. It just came out. They called me in the office one day, and I was about to leave, I think. And that was what's his name got hurt. Magnum TA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was going to be him?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think Rhodes didn't want to. I'm sure. Rhodes was an asshole.
Was he the booker around?
Oh
that
yeah,
time?
he was. Shit, he's the one that killed the territory. Crockett sold the territory, went out of business because of Dusty Rhodes. I'm serious, because of Dusty Rhodes. If he would have kept doing what he was doing, that his dad had established that territory, that would have never happened. The territory still be going today.
Was it Dusty that wanted to bring it to New York and bring it to all the Detroit?
Dusty had dreams of Grandeur or whatever, and the jets. That's what broke him. Yeah, shit's expensive. You think Vince would have jets? No, it's not feasible. As money wise, It's a waste. It's cheaper and faster and safer and less liability to go commercial, than dealing with a bunch of airplanes. You got the liability, Imagine the plane goes down.
Yeah.
What do you think
It's
happens to the
happened
company?
numerous times.
Because I approached Vince one time when I left there to have a fleet of airplanes. I had thought of that. And that's what he told me. He said, the liability is too high. And if you think about it, because I had told him, I says, King Air would have been great for short trips, a couple of jets for the long trips, and I could have been the chief pilot that overlooks the training and hiring pilots. I would have liked to have done that and fly myself too. I could have double dip,
Yeah.
But he assigned you on an airline, man, his liability is gone.
Yeah.
So that would have been
So you think Dusty was overrated as a booker?
Oh,
for the
yeah.
most part?
Oh, shit. Yeah, way overrated. And anybody could have done that job the way he did it. 30 guys on the card. All kinds of gimmick matches. And I mean, you name it. So you didn't know who drew a house. You got 3 main events, and you got chain match, the belt match, the cow belt match, and then you got, it's just too much. How do you follow? You got to follow that. So he was throwing his kitchen sink in the ring and everything. I mean, just, it's too much.
Did you ever wrestle him in singles matches?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, when I left, he was such a jealous guy. Oh, bless his soul. He's maybe it was just the way he liked to do business, but, I remember the Rock and Roll Express. They were so over that Dusty even put himself in 6-man with them. He would book the Rock and Roll Express. Instead of the big town, he'd get a smaller town. And they would outdraw him. He couldn't, I know, I was there. And if you ever meet the Rock and Roll Express or talk to him, ask him.
I've actually heard Ricky Morton's say that, a version of that story before.
He couldn't stand it. I mean, I saw it. And I used to say to myself, man, why don't you put these guys in the big towns? This is where the money, they outdraw everybody. Why not? And they kept on drawing, and they kept on. They were so hot, man. They came in the dressing room one night, their clothes ripped off. I saw this in my own eyes. Their earring out of their ears, they were bleeding. It was.
But he kept.
I mean, the girls were so
market.
over.
Yeah.
They were so over with the girls that it was unbelievable. They looked like rock stars, and they were good-looking kids, and they good workers, and but Dusty had to have, control, and he done it his way, and I think the one that really pushed it was probably Crockett and Flair. Well, Flair and we had some great matches. I mean, and I know he liked to work with me. I don't know if he liked me as a person, but
I haven't heard him say anything bad about you.
I think he, and I'll tell you what, he never complained. And I hit him so hard that his chest was bleeding. He's got scars from it, I guarantee. Yeah, I was split like 5, 6, 7 different places. And we were making money. And he whacked me too, but, and he never complained, never. Never said, oh, man. And even when he was hurt, we just kept pounding on him.
How much advance notice did they give you that you were going to win the title? Because it was pretty prestigious at that time.
Nobody knew, except me, myself, Crockett, Dusty. That's pretty much it. They didn't know even the night it happened. Yeah, I heard about that for a long time. The Rock and Roll Express and all the other guys used to travel. We traveled together a lot. Why didn't you tell us? Crockett just said, nobody leaves tonight. So they didn't know why. They didn't think if it was going to be a fight outside the ring, and they kept it a secret. Nobody knew. Nobody.
Were you pretty honored to have that title reign because it was so prestigious at that time still?
No, I was just honored to have my paycheck.
Yeah.
The business to me didn't mean trophies and shit. It was a job. I looked at it as a job. I don't know. Some guys looked at it maybe as something else, but I strictly looked at it as a job. There was promoters in the old days when I started, I remember. And I saw it quite a few times. There was a good worker, but they just put a belt on him and didn't pay him. And the guy would stay. Well, they paid him, but they should have paid him double what he was making. But the belt,
He was happy to be champion, so he stayed.
yeah. I mean, it's a belt. It's a trinket.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, well, it was okay, but I didn't want to do it. Nobody wanted that job. That's why Flair had it. That's another myth about Pete. He had it for all those years because he was the only one that was willing to be on the road all year long and partying and having a good time, which is fine. That's his life. But how many guys want to do that?
Yeah. 'Cause
I know I wouldn't have done it. I didn't want to have, you know, they had a hard time at times in the business with having the world standard, especially when it was only, years and years ago, I remember the guy was traveling all over the country. It was a hard job.
Didn't Terry Funk ask to lose it because he was?
I heard
having
that
problems
too.
with the
I don't
travel?
know. I heard that because it's just, I know I wouldn't have liked it. I had it for 2 months, I think. You know.
And that was a planned thing because they wanted to exchange.
But you know
it
what
back.
Dusty did to me?
No.
Dusty booked me no title matches the whole 2 months. He didn't want me to defend the title. Right?
So
Oh,
didn't
he
want
put
to
all
get
kinds
it.
of shit in the wheels meant to block this, block that, block this, block that. I ain't stupid. Which I didn't care, you know, and never had a title match. And I was over and he didn't like it because I was a babyface. I beat all the 4 horsemen, okay? I
There were
did.
non-title matches.
Non-title matches. And so I beat all 4 of them. Well, I beat the shit out of them for about 3 minutes in the ring. You're knocking the shit out of all of them, and then they finally eventually left. You know, I mean, that's pretty strong. You know, when they charge the ring and I'm hitting one, hitting the other, they're going through the ropes and they're coming back, and this went on for like 3 minutes. I got tapes of that.
I've seen
you know,
those tapes.
That makes you look pretty damn tough, you know. And so he didn't like that. So what he did is when I came back, I dropped it to Flair. It didn't draw like it should. Do you know why? He took it out of Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yeah.
That was the town. 3 stories. That building would have been packed. It was always packed. They killed that town. After that, Greensboro never was the same. You know, and that's when everything went on the decline. No, he wanted to go to Chicago. He wanted to go to Detroit. All these towns, they lost money. They drew big houses, but the cost, they were losing. Instead
Travel
of making
costs.
money, well, anybody can book like that. You know, anybody can book like that. Yo, you made oh yeah, we drew a $300,000 house, whatever the amount, yeah, but we lost 60,000. You know, and then he took it to, they had the screen in Greensboro. It should have been the fight there, and the screen somewhere else in Atlanta and everything. That would have, because it was the Mid-Atlantic. It belonged there. It didn't belong
Right.
anywhere else, Chicago or, you know, you were taking, it's like taking your ball club out of, and taking it somewhere else.
Was it Dusty that came up with the Tower of Doom match?
That I don't know, probably.
That was a pretty dangerous looking.
Oh, Lord, it was, yeah. And then the bashes, you know, and it was very, I know because a friend of mine was Sandy Scott. He was running towns for me. And he told me quite a few times, he said, man, we bring a lot of money to the office, but we're in a hole, you know, because of the expense. Setting up towers, setting up this and that, and so how good is that? And then Dusty, I saw it coming. I was over like hell in Baltimore. Baltimore, Cleveland, those 2 towns, I was. And Dusty couldn't stand it. So Dusty concocted this deal he was going to turn me heel. And that was after I got beat by Flair. And he wanted me to go knock him out in Baltimore at the end of the match. Tap him on the shoulder, he turned around, and Gary Hart was going to pay me $5,000 or something. There was a bounty on Dusty. And he was going to pay me the $5,000 or $10,000, whatever it was. And so I did it. Well, half booed, half cheered, you know.
Because you were so over.
Yeah, but it was not a successful thing. You know, half of the crowd cheered, half booed, and he laid there, you know, oh, they carried him out. They come and helped him out, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then his deal was he was going to put me partners with this other guy. What was his name? Kind of a Spanish guy. Gary Hart was going to be our manager. And so I got to analyze everything, and I said, I know what Dusty's going to do. He can't stand it. I beat the 4 horsemen. You know, he's not sleeping at night. I'm serious.
Yeah, because he was
so, oh, now he's going to turn me. So now he's going to beat me, Alex Perez.
Okay.
He's going to beat Alex and Gary Hart, all 3 of us. Superman. He's going to take his cape now and fly off, you know. I figured, well. So right before the TV happened, we were going to go down there, and I got on the airplane, and I walked all the way to the back of the airplane, shook hands with all the guys. I says, guys, y'all take care. I'm out of here, blah, 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 blah. And they thought I was joking. I had my suitcase. I walked in, walked out of the plane, got in my car, and went home. Even the pilots, they waited. They said, the pilots didn't believe it. I was done. That was it. Goodbye. So, and then I went to Puerto Rico. And
yeah, what was it like working there? Because they're known, like in my experience there, they screwed around with my pay a lot. So I'm just wondering
I
how
had
your
a
pay
flat
was.
guaranteed, but I got lucky. What it was they give me $5,000 for 3 days, sometimes 2 days. That's after what's his name got killed.
Oh, they were desperate for American
they couldn't
talent.
get nobody. They kind of boycott. You know, a lot of guys didn't want to go, and I knew what's his name?
Bruiser Brody?
No, the guy that
Jose Gonzalez?
No,
Oh,
the
Carlos Colon.
Carlos.
Sorry.
I knew him from way back.
Yeah.
He even worked Montreal. I had met him years
He
ago.
started in Canada, right? He did.
I think so, but I had
yeah.
met him a bunch, and I had worked for him before.
Okay.
You know, and I knew him real well. He's a good guy. I never had a problem with him. And he called me, and I said, "Well, I don't, you know, it's dangerous." You know, he was going to give me the belt, which he did, and you know, all that crap. And I said, "I need some money." And I said, "I can't go all week, you know, weekend because I was flying. I got a flying job, and it was real slow because they were just starting.
Right.
So everything worked out perfect. That would have been '91, I think. So, or beginning of '92. So I told the company I was flying for, and I said, it's slow, and I says, especially on the weekend, I says, I need to take Friday, Saturday, and, you know, come back Sunday or Monday morning. So I did that, you know, and it worked out perfectly. And they pay me. You know, they paid my hotel, they paid everything. He was real good, but that didn't last very long. 3 months, maybe 4 months. I can't remember, because they got audited. They got busted by the IRS. You know, not paying taxes or something. I don't know the details at the time, but he called me, and he what was the other guy that was paying?
Victor Jovica.
That's it. Yeah. He said, "Man," he said, "we wish you could do it for less and this." And then I said, no, I quit. It was dangerous, man. One night I had a bottle hit the post as I was stepping my head up. Oh, if I would have been for that post, it would have been.
Was Brody's Killer still the booker at that time? Because
Yeah.
I know he remained.
Yeah.
What was it like? Because it was so soon after the murder, like to be there, and obviously you probably have to shake his hand and.
Well, I didn't care because I know the story I heard 2 stories.
Yeah.
And it's not right to stab somebody or kill anybody, and I'm not taking sides. But I was around Brody. He flew in my airplane with me. I was around him a lot. You intimidate the wrong person, you know, shoving around, you know, and you're going to a different, you know, you're not home there. You know, the guy never went to jail, so that tells you something.
Yeah.
You know, and supposedly there was a lot of intimidation, and the guy was a little guy. You know what happened? I wouldn't do that to anybody and scare the shit out of a little guy because, and supposedly he had a towel wrapped around his hand, went into the shower, called him in, and, you know, just, which is not right, but that's what I heard. And then there was quite a few guys, Tony Atlas was there, they boycotted, and a lot of guys just went home.
But you got along with Brody in your dealings with him, obviously.
Oh,
if you're
yeah,
flying,
yeah. He flew with me, him and, what was the other guy?
Stan Hansen.
No, he was a booker too and a wrestler.
But yeah, in other words,
But Brody,
There's no problem.
Brody was. But I saw him do stuff that he was a pushy guy.
yeah.
If it didn't go his way,
Yeah. Is it true that he would, if he showed up and he saw it was a good house, he would ask for more
I don't
money?
know.
Yeah.
I never was around him that much. I was early. That's when I was working for Watts, back in '85.
Right.
That's where he was there.
And he
Buck
did-
Robley.
Oh,
That was
Buck
the guy.
Robley. Okay,
Buck
yeah,
Robley.
they were buddies.
Yeah. The funny how the computer's real slow.
That's fine.
The little bit I saw. And the match I had with him, to me, was, I would put it in the class of some of the worst.
All right, so just, you had a short stint in the AWA. What were your memories of that? Because you feuded with Greg.
The AWA, I was going to go there a long, long time ago. I had a match with, what was Vern's son?
Greg.
Greg in Atlanta, Georgia. And we tore the house down. It was like on third match. I mean, just plumb tore that place apart. And he went crazy. Oh man, you gotta come up. I don't know, it's one of those nights. It's just everything clicked. He was not over there. I was a little bit because I've been there. But for some reason, I just, like with the Rougeaus or matches that just, you don't expect it. So he called me a bunch of times, but I never was ready to go to Minnesota. First of all, I didn't want the snow. I didn't want the cold weather. And I was doing well. My philosophy in life was, this is what I need to have at the end of the year, saved. I didn't look for millions. I didn't look for the other guy and being jealous of this guy. He made 600, he made 800. Shit, I had that in my head. And I stayed there if I made that, because it's sure. If I go somewhere else, I might not make what I'm making. So I'm going to reach my goal in the end of the year. This is where I'm going to be and all that. And anyway, that's the way I operated. And so anyway, it never worked out till, I think it was 76. Yeah, 76. I was in Charlotte, and George Scott was the booker. And there was this girl who used to pick me up at the airport, and a lot of the other guys. And it turned out it was his girlfriend. So George never liked me. That was the year with Macho Man.
Right.
So there was a buildup of all kinds of stuff. I had a plane and jealousy, I think. And Wahoo flew with me all the time, and certain guys. And so anyway, there was a big, I went to the office and give him a month's notice. And I said, nothing on TV, no jobs on TV. Oh, no problem. Well, I left and I went home and got my bookings a few days later. And television, Raleigh, North Carolina, against Angelo Mosca. Oh, no, I'm ahead of myself. I got booked. I called Greg. Greg says, man, you start anytime. You start next week, in 3 days, whenever you can get here. I said, well, this is when I want to start, a month. I want it to be decent. I give, because I had a few other things I couldn't leave that fast, unless it was an emergency. So anyway, I got plans to go to Minnesota. So they talked me into going on TV with Mosca. And I said, okay, Mosca's a big old guy, played football. I liked Angelo, he was a good guy, sure. I had told him no TV, but I agreed to one, fine. So I go home and I find out a few days later, Mosca is going a week before me to Minnesota. They send that tape up there. Oh, man, if I would have had one of them in front of me, I'd probably be in jail today, serving life. Oh, I went to the office. I waited till the next day. I went to that office, man, and I walked in, and Scott was standing, and there was a big picture window. I was going to take him through the damn window. If he made a move at me, him and I were going through that window. Both of us. I said, I'm diving like a kamikaze. I went in that office, man, and I cussed both of them. And he was standing there, man, just shrieking. And I was saying, make one move because I'm going to tackle him and I'm going right through that picture window. But he never made a move, and Crockett started talking, and I said, little man, oh, I cussed him. He said, Ronnie, don't burn your bridges. I said, I'm not burning it, I'm blowing up the son of a bitch. And I went out the door and almost took the hinges off. I heard it rattle, man, I whacked it. And his sister's coming down the hall, and I saw her a year later. She says, your nostril looked like a gorilla. I was so mad. So I called Greg, I said, cancel me. Oh, no, they had played the tape already or something, I can't remember. He says, that ain't going to matter. It was just the principle. So anyway, that was
the reason why you didn't go the first time.
No. And then after that, I went, and it was the short-lived. Nothing really happened. I don't think
They were at the end of their days by
yeah,
that point.
yeah, and I was at the end of my days too.
Did you deal much with Vern?
No.
No.
No, a little bit. I just talked a little bit, but no.
And when you went to WWE, was it Terry Garvin that helped get you in there because he was already in the office?
No. I think it was Pat that called me.
Okay.
I think it was Pat that called me. I heard that I had left Puerto Rico. I wasn't going to Puerto Rico anymore. Or I might have called, but I don't think, it seems like it was Pat that I called.
Because he knew you from
Yeah.
your childhood, yeah.
And I went, that's when I went. But I didn't fit there, you know. I tried my best to, one time I told Vince, I said, I can't sing, dance, and rock and roll.
Right.
I said, I can't do that stuff. I mean, I'm not, you know.
Why did they change your name from Hands of Stone
he does
to
that with everybody.
Yeah.
Mostly. I mean, look at Dusty. That's when I knew Dusty Rhodes was broke. When he put polka dots on him.
What did you think of that?
Oh, jeez. Dusty, I mean, Vince is a genius. He's so far ahead. Because Dusty used to go on TV. I was there. When Vince started WrestleMania and all of that stuff, and every chance Dusty had, not only him, there was quite a few guys would knock Vince. You know, wisecracks about, you know, WWF, you know. And I know it, you know, he did a lot. Dusty did more than anybody else. And eventually, he had to call, I guess, or go to work for him. Well, Vince is a hell of a business guy. If he can make money with you, he ain't going to, you know, turn you down. But he's going to get to you. He put polka dots on his ass and give him a black girl in the corner. And here's the American dream, wearing polka dots, the big old fat guy with polka dots. Think about that. That's genius. It's, to me, when I saw that, I went, wow, this is great. You know, I would have never thought of that. Yeah. Most promoters would have told you to go screw yourself, you know. And to me, and Dusty made money, but Vince got his point across, I think.
And you had a WrestleMania 5 match against Dino Bravo. Do you have any memories of working with Bravo at that time in your career?
Not really. No. Oh, I think we had a decent match. Yeah, but it was just to get on the card. That was all. Right. That was all. You know, like when I did with Greg, the refereeing. That puts you on the pay-per-view.
All right. So your main feud in WWE was with Greg Valentine,
yeah.
And it started with you doing a retirement angle. Was that your idea, or was that?
It was my idea.
Okay.
They changed it a little bit. I give it to Pat. Pat said, "Well, let me talk to Vince." They changed. I was going to do it a little different, but it turned out okay. What it was is, I got to look, and if you were not involved in anything, you didn't make pay-per-view, you didn't make, you know, WrestleMania, you know, you didn't make where the money was, you know. So, and I was lost, man. There was so much thing going on with this and this and that and that. I mean, it's easy to get lost, you know, in the shuffle. I mean, shit. And so I came up with the idea where I leave, lose or leave. And I come back as a referee. Go get me a referee's license. Why not? I'm a wrestler. Go get me a referee's license. Then I messed with him. So he didn't get rid of me. I'm still, and then I really can screw him up in matches, give him a fast count, disqualify his ass. I was going to do more than that, But he might have had some plans on getting somebody, like what's his name, the crazy, had a crazy gimmick. What's his name? I mentioned it earlier. Steve Austin.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to do stuff like that. You know what I mean? Be just a crazy ass referee and
a bad good guy.
Just yeah. And but they didn't want to go that far. But it worked out. You know, I mean, I got on the we had good matches. And, you know, I was involved. You know, and I like to work with him. So it was and I stretched it out till November '90, whatever it was, and I was done. You know?
I heard that his father was one of your favorites.
Oh, I'll tell you what. That guy was to me, he was a masterpiece, man. He would come in, and a lot of promoters wouldn't give him the time. It took him anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Because at first it was kind of boring. Because he was very slow and methodical. But I'll tell you what, when he hit somebody, you hear him in the parking lot. Yeah, that's one thing about working with him. You came in the dressing room with a lot of forearms marks across your back and your chest. He'd lay you over the rope, man, and pop. Ringside people couldn't believe it. Yeah, they believed him. That was one guy, to me, he was probably the most believable guy in wrestling. Didn't do much. Didn't do kicking, didn't do anything. But he locked up like a bull. He was tall, not real tall, 6'2" or 3" maybe. You know, and he had a perfect physique, and his eyes, he had these crazy eyes, and he'd look at the people. At first when he started doing that, it's kind of boring. But about 3-4 weeks later, man, the whole damn place would go nuts. He'd stare at him, and then he'd stare on the other side. And, oh my God. And then when he got over, that's why Wahoo followed him everywhere. They made a fortune, you know. And you talk about belief. If you didn't believe that, you didn't believe nothing. I mean, these guys, I was right there, man, and I worked with him a couple of times. I never was involved in any angles because he was involved with so many people. But, God, man, it was totally different. And then once he got to be such a great villain, be like Steve Austin, he turned him babyface. Then he had another run for him. They went to Texas, they went to the Carolinas, they went to Florida, they you know, they went to where they was making money and they could sit down in the dressing room and talk with the booker and run their stuff, you know.
And before you left WWE, it looked like there was being an angle set up with you and Rick Martel. Is there any reason why there was no TV matches for that angle, or you just?
I was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hunt season.
Yeah.
You know, November. I didn't want to work anymore.
Yeah.
Hunt season, they had a hard time keeping me. You too, I think.
And you mentioned Wahoo McDaniel a few times. What are your thoughts on him as a wrestler and a person? Because he was a pretty legendary guy.
Who now?
Wahoo McDaniel.
Oh, that was one of a kind. One of a kind. I traveled, he loved to fly with me. Oh yeah. He would fly with me and like we'd go to Richmond. Well, the next day we were in Norfolk right down the road. Nah, I got to go back to Charlotte, play some golf. He was a big golfer. So I'd fly, I got to sleep in my bed, you know, instead of saving money and staying over there, you know, fly back home. Next day we'd fly back, right back where we were almost. And we'd go hunt together. I hunted with him. And the only thing I didn't like being around him is he paid all the time. And money didn't matter to him, you know. And he told me many times, you know, he was broke, but he says, I would do it exactly the same. I wouldn't change a thing. You know, he paid all the time. You know, he would give his shirt off his back. He was one of those guys, you know, and it gets uncomfortable. You know, you want to pay your way. You know, if I'm going to go have dinner or drink some beer or something. But yeah, he was and man, I'll tell you what, he drew some money. Crockett, Texas, all over. Everywhere he went. I think it was in the 60s. If I remember right, it was 67 or 8 in Florida. He made $100,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would have been around
That was big bucks back then.
Yeah.
Because 66, I bought a brand new house. Brand new house now. 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2-car garage in Florida. It's a $350,000 house today. It's 16.5. So imagine making 100,000. You could buy 6, 7 houses like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was probably like making $1 million today. I don't know. I don't know where you, or 800,000. Yeah.
What would your biggest pay years have been? The WWE years or the?
My biggest pay was 150,000. I still get the first check I got.
Oh wow, that was one check.
No, just kidding. First dollar, first check.
Oh.
I framed it. Nah, I had a good career. I didn't make millions, but I'm happy. Let's put it that way. I don't have to worry.
And what do you think of today's product? I know you don't really watch it, but just in general, from what you've seen.
I think it's, well, it's me. I don't understand that. I don't understand the world today. I really don't. Because to me, now this is just me, and I don't mean to insult anybody. To me, there is no common sense in anything anymore. You think what I did on this interview, if I would have done this in 1960 and pass it around, wrestling would have been dead. Really. They didn't take it, some took it as entertainment, but the majority were there because they wanted to see a contest. And you might have had just 50% believing in it. And then you had 25% skeptics. Then you had 25% that just went there because there's nowhere to go, and they just, it's a good show. That's what they would say. A good show. Today, none of that matters. And I see stuff that, like McMahon coming off the 30-foot drop.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. But they do stuff that's not that extreme, and they're running around. That's the part that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I mean, why do that if you're not going to take advantage of it? But the mentality is different. The psychology is, I guess, is not important. I think the music, the explosions and the lights and the booms and the bangs and the interviews and the tattoos and whatever, the whole, I guess that's what people are into. Well, it's successful, so I'm not knocking it. I don't understand it, and I couldn't do that stuff. If wrestling would have been like that when I broke in, I would have been a plumber or something. Some kind of.
But in general, the industry is not as successful as it used to be because there's.
I think wrestling is dead. Yeah. In this way. We used to have wrestling in every town. That's weekly. Like North Carolina, for example, you had 2 to 3 towns every night. Every night of the week. And you had to be very good at booking because you were in the same town weekly to keep a good average. You couldn't do that today. Well, that's gone. So count all those fans all over the country, all those towns. Now they go to the big shows, right? They run the big towns. Yeah, they have big shows, big crowds. I give that. You got the pay-per-views draw, big audience, But what I'm talking about is local wrestling, the weekly, and all that stuff. That's all gone. And that's why today when sometimes I go do sign autographs, some of these shows, it's hard for the guys to learn. Because first of all, if you're wrestling with a guy that's got the same experience or 6 months or a year more than you, who's teaching who? It doesn't rub off. Wrestling, when you wrestle with somebody that's good, it rubs off on you. And you wrestle with this other guy, and you start watching, a lot of things, you pick it up, and you don't have to copy. Today I think it's too much copying about clotheslines and a lot of repeats, and you don't see too many guys having a totally different style. Like in the old days, you had guys, like Yvonne Robert Rougeau's, Kowalski, guys like that, you know, they were all different. None of them look alike. It was, you got a lot of look alike today. I mean, just at a glance. You know, if you look at them for a while, then you'll see, you know, the guy's taller, bigger or something. But they go in the ring dressed up a lot the same, you know. But what the heck, that's the world today, and it's successful.
So what advice would you give a prospective wrestler getting into the business?
I don't know.
Now?
I wouldn't know where to start. I tell the guys, I says, you know how fortunate I was? I went to Boston, like Bull Montana, Bull Curry. We had old timers, and you know. And then when I left, I went to Oklahoma and other places, and then they made you go. You wrestled 30, 40 minutes, 25, 30 minutes with guys that knew. I remember one time Pancho Villa. You ever heard of him?
No.
Roberto Pico. Pancho Villa. Big old 270-pound guy. Nicest guy you've ever met. He was like my dad. He liked me. We'd travel. He liked to drink his beer. And he'd call me kid, you know, and he'd always squeeze my wrist, you know. He'd wink at me. He says, "You're going to make it." He was a good guy, tough guy. He was an ex-boxer, you know, and he always had that pause, you know, and mean-looking guy. He had bushy brow, high brows, but he could have been mean, you know. You could tell that one time when he was younger. I met him, he was probably 47, 48 years old. And I wrestled this guy. I was 200 pounds soaking wet in Louisiana. 201. I would go from 198 to 201. Every time I go below 200, I'd have a shit fit. I wanted to be 200. I don't know why. It's in the head, you know, just in the head.
Yeah.
I don't know, 200. So, and I had blonde hair, and I looked like a punk, you know, and I got a lot of heat. Back then, you had blonde hair, it was like a boy named Sue. I got attacked a few times, you know. Yeah, blonde hair in the 60s was a natural heat getter. So we're in Lafayette, Louisiana, in a roller skating rink. Not a big building, but it was pretty full. And I'm wrestling Pancho Villa. And I knew him, you know, and so we get in the ring, and he says, "Kid, you're gonna be the biggest heel." And I figured, shit, he's 270 pounds. He's a heel. He was the big villain. But he turned me, and I didn't understand it. I came out of the ring, man, people attacked my butt. And he came and fought me all the way to the dressing room and opened the door and shoved me in like he just punched me. But he saved me. And you talk about a lesson, but he put himself in holes. He did. He would grab my hand when we lock up, put it on top of his head, and he'd run in the turnbuckle. I was like a robot. Nobody ever knew.
That's
everything he wanted done. Yeah. And that's what I learned. Man, that's amazing what you can do. You know, because I didn't look the part against him. He was a 270-pound guy, and I was just a kid, you know. And then I traveled the roads with him after that. I don't think I ever worked with him again. Just a one-night thing. Cold match, and he had people wanted to kill me. You know, and I tried to figure out how they do it. I went to Oklahoma, and there was Al Lovelock. You ever heard of him? He was one of the Bolos in North Carolina.
Okay.
And he was from out Oklahoma, Texas, somewhere. And Anton the Ripper Leone. They were two old guys. Well, to me, they were old. They probably were 48 years old, 47 years old, maybe even 50. They were the main event in Little Rock, Arkansas. That was my first time I went out there, first match. And I remember watching that match because I had went on earlier, and man, I did everything I knew about in wrestling, every bump and flying and bing, bang, boom, and you know, trying to impress somebody. I'm watching that match. They're not doing anything. To me, they weren't doing anything. To me, there were two old guys in the ring. And I remember near the end of the ring, Anton was sitting on Al Lovelock's chest. He was laying on his back, and he had his arm like this, and he was wrapping his string around the wrist. People were beating on the ring, screaming, and the first thing we know, people are on the apron of the ring trying to get into the ring.
Wow.
And I'm looking at this, and I'm going, God, they're sitting down. They're probably, blah, 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 blah. I'm totally only, he would, spit that for the top, blah, 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 and double talk and doing all this crazy stuff. And people are right. And the place was packed. And I'm going, wow. But I guess it's what they were doing, the picture they were painting or something. Wow, how much damage can you do with a string around somebody's wrist? He's looking back, Characters, man. I mean, there was a lot of characters in the wrestling. Yeah, that's gone today.
And just for the final question, is there any message that you want to tell your fans that might be watching this?
Well, I'm pretty old. Have I still got fans out there?
Oh, yes.
Well, I'm during my day now. I'm not talking about new fans.
Yeah.
I'm talking about because I've been to a lot of shows and, they say, oh, man, I mean, they barely can walk when they come to me. And I tell them, bless your heart, thank you for being a fan. If it would have been for wrestling fans, we wouldn't have made much of a living. And you got a lot of die-hard fans. When they were out there in the rain and snowstorm, they'd still show up. Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.